So yesterday we had a sugya, began with a kneading trough, and we had dough in the kneading trough, and we want to know if it's bottle or not, if the dough is bottle or it's part of the kli, or it's not part of the kli. So we had, it depended on the location of the kli. It was on the bottom of the kli. We concluded, according to Abaya, that even if it's a kezayis, I just lost everybody, that even if it's a kezayis, it would be bottled to the kli, and you won't be over because you need it. If it's on the top of the kli, even less than a kezayis, would not be bottled because it's not so necessary. And the side of the kli, if it's a kezayis, then it's not bottled because it's choshev. And if it's pachas b'kezayis, it's bottled. And we said v'chein le'inyan tumah, and they threw in an adjoinder over there, depending in makbid of chaytzetz. If a person's makbid on the dough being there, it's a chatzitza, and but he wants to keep it there, harihu kareva, then it's considered part of the areva. So when it says v'chein le'inyan tumah, it's mashma, it's also davar, it's the same as Pesach, and l'chari the Gemara has a problem with that. By Pesach, guys, it's contingent upon the shear, whether it's kezayis or not. By tumah, it's contingent upon whether there's makbid or not, whether you're makbid, regardless of the shear. So what's the v'chein? And so it's quite different. Says the Gemara. That's what we're up to on Chaf Mem Hey Amid Beis, 4 lines from the bottom. V'chein le'inyan tumah im makbid of chaytzetz when moitze b'kiyum how do you create reifa? Fred the Gemara midami. What's the what? Yeah, it's not comparable. Hasam by Pesach b'shiur tali milsa. It's tali b'shir, whether it's pachas or not, right? When in the side of the kneading bowl, if it's pachas, it's bottle. If it's kezayis, it's not bottle. But it's the tali in the amount of dough. But hacha over here by tuma b'kipei the tali milsa, whether the person is makbid that it's there and therefore it's not part of the kli, or the person is not makbid, and then it's part of the kli. So Amar Rabbi Yehuda will have a few terutzim. Only one will work out. Amar Rabbi Yehuda ema u'le'inyan tumah einon kain. Say le'inyan tumah it's not so. Don't say v'chein it is so. Say le'inyan tumah it's not so. Why? Because by Pesach it's dependent upon amount, and by tumah it depends upon akpada. Fred the Gemara, right? Amalei Abaya v'hav'chein le'inyan tumah k'tani. It doesn't say einoi kain. It says kain. It says it's the same. It doesn't say it's not the same. So that teretz is not going to wash. So what do you mean v'chein le'inyan tumah? Elo Amar Abaya says Abaya hachikama. Here's the way you have to read it. V'chein le'inyan siruf tumah b'Pesach. So too le'inyan siruf tumah b'Pesach u'b'shayimos hashana ikaplukta. What does that mean? We saw earlier in the Masechta, and when we did the Sugi Reb Chanina Sagana Kahanim, and it bears repetition because it shows up in Shas all the time, that the share of Tumas Oichlin is a Beitza. As opposed to much Shiurim we have is the share of Ketzayis, the share to transmit Tumah is the share of a Beitza. We had Machloikas, Rashi, and Tosfos. What about Linyan Makabel Tumah? Whether the food that's Makabel, the receiver, whether it has to be the size of a beitza or not. Rashi says it doesn't, even less than a beitza with Mekabel Tumah. Tosfos says no, a beitza. But everyone's moida to be a transmission of Tumah, a transmitter of Tumah, you have to be what? You have to be a size of a beitza. So here you have a trough, you have a piece of dough, you have a ochel, less than a beitza, but it's touching the dough. And with the dough, it's mitzaref to the shir of a beitza. Something touches it, that's tamei, and then something that's tar touches it. Do we say when mitzaref the dough in the kli with the eichel to the shir of a beitza to transmit tumah? That's the question at hand. Says the Gemara, v'chein le'inyan siruf tumah b'Pesach u'b'shayimos hashana ikaplukta. Echidami, keep going. You have less than the share of beitza of eichlin, v'nagu b'hai batzik, and you touch that batzik. And now, after you do that, you go ahead and you touch a food that's tahar to it. B'Pesach, the surah chashiv mitztarif. B'Pesach, that the isur is chashiv, meaning you have the kazayis, that in this case the beitza, then it will be combined. You combine the two. The rest of the years, if it's Tali and Kepeda, so in Makbid Alav Mitzdarif, if you Makbid it's Mitzdarif, in Reitze B'Kiyumai, and if you want to keep it there, then what? Harihu Kareva, it's part of the Areva, and it would be Mitzdarif because it would be considered a piece of what? Of the pot, and it won't be considered a food. So that would depend whether what it's there's a Hakpada or not, and it's the Indian seer of Tumah, whether you Mitzarif the dough that's touched by less than a Beitza to be a transmitter of Tumah. By Pesach, it's Tali and Shear, and by the rest of the year, it's Tali in Pesach le'inyan chametz. It's Tali b'sher. The rest of the year by linyan tumah, it's Tali in hekpada. Fnaskef l'rava mikatani mitzdarif. V'chaytz it's katani. Guys, look back at the Mishnah. What did the Mishnah say? Back in the Mishnah Mem Hey. Batzik shebedis sicharei yesh kizayis makamechan. Right. V'chein linyan tumah makbel of chaytzitz. If you makbid, it's a chatzitza. It doesn't say you makbid, it's mitzdarif. It says if you makbid, then it's chaytzitz, meaning it's a partition. It's not considered part of the kli. If it writes a b'kiyuma, then it is considered part of the kli. So the lashon of tziruf is not there. So how can the pshat of Abaya be correct? So Rav has got a kash on Abaya's pshat. It's not discussing being mitzdarif, combining. It's speaking in chatzitza. So Ella Amarava, Rabbi has his pshat. He'll take his turn to possibly explain this. Ella Amarava, v'chein lahalois tyra la'areva. You want to go ahead, what? And see if this areva could be tahar. Heichi dami, what's the case? Going the itma hachareva. This areva, this kneading trough became tamei. Uboilat bule b'Pesach, and you want to be toivel on Pesach. And you want to be toivel on Pesach. The surah chashiv chaytzitz. On Pesach, where the shear is chashiv, it's going to be a chatzitza, and it won't be a good tefillah because it's not part of the kli, and it's like something's on the kli. V'leisokla tefillah. V'shayimos hashana b'ktela tolam milsa talium kapeda. Imakbel of chaytzitz and reitzit kiyuma hariyu kareva. We've spoken now quite a few times that the really midaraisa, guys, is that if your makbid is something, it's not a chatzitza. We're geyser. We make gzeres d'abbanan with that pada that even if we're not makbid, we say it is a chatzitza. But midaraisa, if you're not makbid on the thing being there, it's not a chatzitza at all. So Rava wants a taina. This kli is tamei, and what? And we have what? You have a piece of batzek in the kli. Linyan Pesach with Tali and Shir, whether it's batal or not. The Inyan Tumah, it depends. If you're makbid, then it's the chatzitza and the kli is still tumah. It wasn't oilo. The tefillah of the kli didn't help. If you write the b'kiyumo, I want that batzek there, then it's a good tefillah because it's considered part of the kli and it's not a chatzitza. Maskal Rav Papa and Rav's pshat mikatani v'chein linyan taira halinyan tumah katani. It said v'chein linyan tumah. So we had a few pshatim. We had a few attempts. We had Rabbi Yehuda's attempt. He wanted to say they're not the same. We had a biased question saying, but he told me, it says they are the same. We had a biased pshat in mitzdarif. We had Rabbi's question and didn't speak about siruf. We have Rabbi's pshat, it's speaking about being matar. We have Rav Papa's kasha, it's not speaking about taira, it's speaking mechelin and tumah. So listen to the teretz. Here's the maskana. It really works out nicely. A sheretz, an avatuma, can be mitama adam v'kelim. An eichel, a rishon, cannot be mitama adam v'kelim. So if I have a kli, it's got a hole in it, and I plug the hole with dough. I have a sheretz, and it touches not the kli, it touches the dough. If the dough is considered part of the kli, then the whole kli will be tamei, because it's as if the sheretz touched the whole kli. Conversely, if it's not part of the kli, I'm makbid, not that it shouldn't be there, so the dough is takatame. It becomes a rishon. But the kli will be tahor because the rishon cannot be become of the kli. That's shot in the Mishnah. Says the Gemara, Maskal Rav Papa, Mikatani v'chein l'intayra halin yitum mikatani. Ella Amar Rav Papa, v'chein l'inyan l'hoyre tuma l'areira. We're speaking l'inyan tuma. Can this batzek go ahead and transmit tuma to the needing trough or not? Echidami, kigoin, the naga sheretz by batzek. The sheretz touches this batzek. The Pesach, the surah chashiv, chaytzetz. Where there it's considered chashiv. It's a chatzitza, and the kli will not be tamei. V'loinach la tuma. B'shayimos hashana, all the rest of the year, the bekapeda talin milsa that we're talin kapeda and makbel of chaytzetz. If I'm mak, it'll be a chatzitza because it's not part of the kli, and therefore the rishon can't be mitam of the kli. And writes b'kiyumoi. However, if I want b'kiyumo, meaning I want the batzek to be there and it's part of the kli, harihu kareva, and the kli will be tamei. That's what it means, v'chein le'inyan tuma. So the shear of kazayas, the shear by Pesach, whether it's tamei or not, again, is considered the chashivas, whether it's chashiv, and the rest of the year, the v'chein le'inyan tuma by Pesach, it's considered the chashivas, whether it's kazayas or less than kazayas. By the rest of the year, it's totally whether it's kapeda or not kapeda. And that's the final din in the Mishnah. Okay, new Mishnah. Batzek hacheresh. You have a cheresh is someone who usually can't talk. Sometimes it says cheresh can't talk and can't hear. Usually we say no. Usually a cheresh is a person that's deaf. Cheresh here means silent. It means silent. So what in the world are we speaking about? Says Rashi. You didn't recognize whether it's chametz or not. Imlav. Now we already had earlier, guys. Remember we did the sugya of Sa'ar, we had the machlokes. We're going to see it again. Machlokes of Yehuda and Remeya. When it gets pale, then it gets a little antennas, and then it gets a lot of cracks. So when it gets a lot of cracks, then it's when it gets antennas, according to Remeya, your mamish get chorus for that. According to Yehuda, you get mountains for that. When it's when the face is white, then you get mountains. According to Remeya, the asa. According to Yehuda, be mutter. However, over here, this dough is not doing anything. The dough is just not getting any antennas. It's not getting any cracks. It's just staying there. It's a cheresh. It's like silent. It doesn't do anything. Question: at which point in time will we consider this dough chametz? That's the shayla. So continue the Rashi. Ve'eino nikra im shomei lav. Ve'eino adam oimed al biruroi ve'al daitoi lishnachrina batzik hacheresh kasha kecheresh. It's hard like a cheresh. Ve'eino nikra shehichmitz. You don't go ahead and recognize what it's chametz. Ratzul leimar hichsifu panav. It's white. It's pale. The ain't siduk l'simen achimutz. It doesn't have any cracks like the simen of simen. So therefore, how do you know whether it's chametz or not? Continues Rashi. If you have dough at the same time that became chametz, who was needed at the same time, then you know this is chametz as well. So in other words, they began the race at the same time. The one dough is this with strange dough, it's not reacting. And another dough, this dough is what is regular dough, it's going through the motions. So at the time when the regular dough gets sidukim, it gets cracks in it, that's the time that the batzik hacheresh is what is tummy. Now the question is chametz. The question is, what is the zman? Now you all know the zman of 18 minutes, and this is the Gemara where we get it from. This is the Gemara where we get 18 minutes from. Let's say you do not have the way to do this problem, right? You can't go ahead and do this problem, this test, right? You can't go ahead and do this test. Mahu. So Amr Avo, Amr of Shimon ben Lakish, Kidei sheyelich Adam mi migdal nunya l'tferia. The time it takes for a normal person to walk from the tower of Nunya to Tferia, which is a mill. Guys, a mill is 18 minutes. That's where you get it from. A mill, the time it takes to walk a mill is 18 minutes. And that's where we get the shear of 18 minutes from. The name of mill, Fred the Gemara, why do you give me Migdal Nunya to Tveria? Why don't you just say mill? It says, there's Hakamashman. The shiur the mill is kamigdal nunya tveria. We're giving us we're giving us a ways of figuring it out. Amra Avo, Amra Shimon, just total off into the tangential sunset. Amra Yehuda, Amra Shimon ben Lakish, Legabel, the person who is a kneader. Remember, we had Bar Kapara, Avishol was the kneader in the house of the Reish Galusa. There seemed to be people who were kneaders. They were expert kneaders. So someone who's going ahead and he was hired to go ahead and knead, and the Baal Abayis Kli is Tameh. How far does he have to walk to get a Torah to Kli? We say until 4 mil. So if a mil is 18, then 18 times 4 is 72. 18 times 4 is 72. So Legabel, for a professional kneader who does not, how far does he have to walk to get a Torah to Kli? Is 4 mil. Ulit Tfila. And Le'inyan Tfila, how far does a person have to go ahead to walk? What does Rashi says? Ulispal and Yeshiv basic Knesset in front of you. How far do you have to walk to go to shul? If it's in front of you, you have to walk 4 mil. You have to walk 72 minutes. V'chein le'inyan netilas yadayim, le'inyan eating netilas yadayim. If you'd have to walk 4 mil to wash your hands. So 3 halachas: kneading, davening, and washing your hands. Arba milim. All these are the distance of 4 mil. Amrav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Ayvoy Amra, the Tana Ayvoy says, V'arba, there's a 4th one. V'arba Amaba, the Chodim Inayu is cheaper. The time it takes to go ahead and tan a hide. The Tnan. We have, the halacha, guys, is that Basar Nevela is Tameh. Skin is not Tameh. The skin of a Nevela is not Tameh. However, there are exceptions. For Kulan and all these soft skins that in the Perika Orva Roitiv in Chulin, which are soft and edible, so they have the din of Nevela and the Metama. At which point in time can you do something to remove that status, that they won't be Metama? The Kulan She'ivdan, all these skins that I just described to you, if you tan them, or you walk on top of them, if you walk on them or tan them, the time of tanning, it's tahar, right? Chutzmi or adam, with the exception of a human skin. A human skin will always be metama. The kama kedei ibuda, what's the shear? So Raviana kedei hilach arba milin, the distance it would take you out to walk 4 mil. So we have 4 halachas. We have a halacha of kneading, a halacha of going to shul, a halacha of washing your hands before you eat, and a halacha of tanning. And we're saying all of these have in common the shear is 4 mil or 72 minutes. When do we say that you have to walk 4 mil? This is going on the Tilas Yadayim and Tefillah. You're on the road and you have to wash your hands. You're on the road, you have to daven. That's only if you're walking ahead of you. You do not have to walk behind you 4 mil. Afterwards, afilu mil, you do not have to go back. Even a mil, you would not have to go back. To go ahead, they won't be matriach you. To go on your journey, to force you to go on your journey a little quicker, and regarding Tilas Yadayim and the Tefillah, that you'd have to walk. But regarding going back, even a mil not. Amravacha umina, and from here we can ascertain milhu de'ena chayzer. A pachas mil, however, less than a mil, less than 18 minutes, you'd have to walk back to wash, and you'd have to walk back to daven. Okay, a nice little respite from Masechta. Okay, back to Masechta Pesachim. We know one of the matnas kahuna is chala. Chala is the chi of chala is yimafish mina isa. You go ahead, you knead it, and as soon as it's kneaded, it's dough. You mafish, you give to the kohen. It has a din of truma. It's a matnas kahuna. Just like there's a din of separating truma from a crop, there's a din of separating challah from dough. Now let's say your dough became tameh. Now, guys, tameh is only a problem for the kohen, and only a problem for a regular Jew who is makbid to eat his chulin al tyrus hakodesh. A regular Jew can eat tameh de chulin; it's not a problem. So let's say you have dough that's tameh, it's Pesach, What do? You have to take off challah, but there's problems with that. Let's go through the variables. I go ahead, I knead it, I separate the challah, but it's tameh. I can't give it to the kohen because he can eat it. Burn it. I can't burn kach and biyontif. You're not allowed to. Okay, wait till Motzei Yontif and burn it. Motzei Yontif, it's going to come chametz. So what do? I just gave you the variables, guys. Again, you had a problem. What do you do with the challah? What do you do with it? I can't give it to the kohen because I have to give it to him something he can eat. He can't eat it. I can't burn it, separate it and burn it. I'm not allowed to burn kach and biyontif. I can't wait till nightfall because it's a chametz. So I got a problem. What do you do? So we have a two-way of machlokes and an eitzah. Machlokes Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua and an eitzah of Ben Beseira. So let's see the Gemara. Kate said mafrishin challah b'tumah b'yontif. How do you separate challah b'tumah b'yontif? Rabbi Eliezer Omer le'sikra la shem. Don't call the shem challah ad she'teyafeh. Usually you separate it what from dough. Don't separate it from the dough. Go ahead, bake it. Once it's baked, right, then you don't have a problem. You'll separate it, and you'll wait till night to burn it. The kohen can't eat it because it's tameh. You're not burning it on Yontif, and by waiting to nightfall, it's not going to become chametz because it's already baked. So says Rabbi Elazar, I got a very, very good idea. That's what you should do. That's my idea. That's what you should do. Let's see Rashi. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, there's 2 lines from the bottom. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, le'tikra l'shem, challah. Don't call it challah yet. Ad she'ti'af until it's baked. Tchila. First you bake it. Da'akati kol chada chada chaz yalei. The problem is, guys, how could you bake something on Yontif that it's not yours? You're not allowed to bake on Yontif. But since it's for you, the chad chazile, the mafresh mikol chad v'chad purta. You could take off a little bit from each one. Chala ulachrafia imratza yafish chala shleim al kulan. And therefore, when it's finished, you can go ahead and take off one big slice, one for all of them. Kidatam Gemara, as we're going to see, Iksav Rebbe Eliezer hasal shu roidim ben ataner. The sal that you take down all the bread, or in this case the matzah from the tanner, the soichoi mitzarfoi lechala. So in other words, usually when you take it off from the dough, so the challah is on the whole dough. Over here you have a bunch of separate pieces of challah. How can I go ahead? I have 10 pieces of 10 matzahs, and you can take one matzah for all the 10, but I separated it already. How can I separate this? So says Rabbi Eliezer, when it's in the basket is mitzvah like one piece of dough, one piece of matzah. So when I take off that one matzah of the 10, I'm just giving an arbitrary number, then it's considered what? Being mafresh. So that's Rabbi Eliezer's eitzah, and that would avoid the problems that are inherent in Tamei Dika dough. Then Beseira Omer, Tatel B'tsoinen. Take the dough, throw it in cold water. And guess what? You know what cold water is going to do? It's going to stop everything. Hold the presses. Hold the presses. Wait till Motzei Yontif. Separate it. Make your matzah. Burn the challah. No problem. Got it? Put it in cold water. Put it in cold water. It'll get what? It'll get nothing. Wait till Motzei Yontif. Go ahead, separate challah. And now it's not Yontif. You're able to burn it. So that's what Rabbi Beseira is eitzah. Rabbi Yeshua says, Rabbi Yeshua mebeis lo yizehu chametz shemusharin lo bal yirah bal yimatzi. You have no problem. You have no problem. Go ahead, separate this. It doesn't belong to you. The din of bal yirah bal yimatzi is only on yours. This doesn't belong to anybody. So go ahead, separate challah, let it become chametz. It's not your problem. Lo yizehu chametz shemusharin lo bal yirah bal yimatzi. El mafrishasa, separate it. Umanichta ad erev, leave it to the evening. Then mechmitza, and if it becomes chametz, it becomes chametz. Says the top Rashi, lo zeh chametz shemusarin alav, Kin mefarish b'Gemara. The lavdi dehu, it's not his. La'acha shekar l'shem. Once he called the shem chal, it's no longer his. The kruksiv shel choyat haraya, right? Al roya shel acherim. Zeh ena shel chav, v'lo shel chavercha. That can't do lemot liyad koyin. It never came to the hands of the koyin yet. So therefore, you don't have a problem. Now, what would Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua hold concerning Ben Beseira, putting in cold water? So let's see the bottom Tosfos on Mem Vav Amid Aleph. Hato b'tzainin, Amari, the Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua, loy pligia Ben Beseira. They're arguing on each other, but they're not arguing on Ben Beseira. Shalei toyel hatolet tzainin. In other words, it's not. It's a mitzias. They know. They hold that what? Of course, you can put it in cold water. And in Heicha Timtzu, where you did call the shame, right? Where you did call the shame, the Maida throw it in the cold water. Rabbi Eliezer would be Maida throw it in the cold water. He's just saying another eitzah that you don't have to come onto the cold water. He has an eitzah where you're able to go ahead and make matzah on Yontif. Yehudi, you had a question.
No, according to Rabbi Yeshua, you're not worried about having a piece of dough around the house, even though it's not yours. The whole point of doing bedika, right?
Bal yirah, bal yamatzah. It's not yours.
Yeah, but what was the whole thing about shami matzah gluska yafa?
Again, that was
that's only for yours.
That again, no one's eating raw dough. We're not worrying about eating raw. A gluska is a roll. It's a big object.
It's something that's already baked.
This is ready. It's a piece of dough.
And there's a second question. How would you keep the water cold the whole day of Yom Tov to make sure it doesn't rise? Eventually we get warm the water, no?
Again, I'm not such an expert. If they say cold water, you have cold water, okay?
Okay.
Cold enough. Keep it outside.
Okay.
Arya, what's your question?
Are you allowed to burn the truma for fuel?
Yes.
So why can't the kohen use it as fuel on Yom Tov?
You're not allowed to burn it on Yontif. You can't burn truma on Yontif. You can burn it. You can burn it on chayil, not on Yontif.
Even though he's using it for fuel, he can't burn it.
You can't burn truma kachim. You can't burn it on Yontif. No. On chayil you can.
The oil you could use some of the oil on.
Tommy, again, if it's not on Yontif. Not on Yontif. It has to be on chayil during the chayil. Now, lema b'toivus hana kamiflagi. Let's say they're arguing in toivus hana. There's a Gemara in Bechayris, guys, that even though you're a Jew, I keep on saying a Jew, you're a Zar, you're a non-Kohen, right? You're a non-Kohen. A non-Kohen has certain monetary rights. For example, let's say he has a grandson that's a Kohen. His daughter married a Kohen. So his grandson's a Kohen. So he could go ahead and give you a few pennies, a few bucks that you should give your truma to his grandson. That's Toivus Hana. Now, Pashtus, Rebbe Eliezer holds there is a problem of Bal Yirah, Bal Yamatzeh. Correct? That's why he didn't let it become Chametz. Fellas, Rebbe Eliezer clearly held there's a problem of Bal Yirah, Bal Yamatzeh. He needed to go ahead. He will not allow it to go ahead and rise. Rabbi Yeshua had no problem. So the Gemara wants to suggest the machloikis between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua is whether it's yours or not. Now, how can it be mine if I'm a non-kohen? And the answer would be, my rights of Toivus Hana, is it considered mammon or not? Like Rabbi Eliezer, who is worried about Bayirah, Bayimatzah, obviously I have some monetary rights over here. And therefore I would be over Bayirah, Bayimatzah, unless if I didn't call the shame and baked in the eitzah that he gave. Mashenker Rabbi Yeshua says, no, go ahead, make it chalal, let it rise. There's no problem. Why? Because you have no monetary rights over here. It's not yours. That's the Gemara's suggestion. Says the Gemara, Lema b'toivus hana kamiflapi. The Rebbe Eliezer sava toivus hana mammon. And therefore, if it's money, it's your money, you have to worry about Bayirah, Bayimatzah. Rabbi Yeshua sava, Rabbi Yeshua is of the opinion, toivus hana ain't a mammon. Toivus hana is not money. And therefore, go ahead, let it rise. Normally, it's chametz, who cares? It's not mine. Says the Gemara, loy. The Kuliyalma Sava Toivus Hana ain't a mammon. So it's a kasha. So what's Pshan Rebbe Eliezer? If everyone holds Toivus Hana is not money, so Where's the Bal Yirah, Bal Yimatzah over here? What shaykhis do I have to chala that I can be over Bal Yirah, Bal Yimatzah? Guys, it's a basic question. L'choy ataroya ein ataroya, aval ataroya shel acherim. The whole problem we're worried about over here is having chametz in your rishus. Your rishus, your chametz in your rishus. If it's the kohen's chala, it belongs to the kohen, and you're telling me toivas hana is not money, what possibility do I have in this truma, in this chala, that it's mine? That Rabbi Eliezer is worried. You hear that? It's a base question. What rights do I have? And for the Gemara, I'll tell you what it is. Hoyel. Throughout Shas, we have this concept of hoyel, since, meaning, since this is possible, then this. So watch. The Rebbe Eliezer Sava Amin and hoyel. Rebbe Eliezer says, well, you do say hoyel. The e-boy, now, what's the hoyel over here? The boy itchul Allah, since if I would go ahead and say, I don't want this to be chala, I go to a Talmud Chacham and say, I made a mistake, I don't want it to be chala, and he goes, mutalach, mamainahu, it's his money. Rabbi Yeshua Saba lo yamin in hoyel. And Rabbi Yeshua says, I don't hold the hoyel. So a very, very base machlokes. Guys, do you remember we said you could be Yoitza Yechi of Matzah with the Mai, with the Avanama Aretz?
After his property.
Right, the Gemara halachazile, and for the Gemara what? Hoyel, since if he be mafke his nechasim, he'd be a nani chazile. It's an example of a hoyel. In other words, since there's a hechatimtza of me creating a scenario where it's mine, then it's good. So there's a classic hoyel right over there. Since I can be mafka my nechasim, I'm not ani, and an ani can eat the mai, so therefore I have a shaykhus to the matzah. Says Rebbe Eliezer, since I can be shoyel on any kedusha bepeh, anything you make bepeh, anything that you make bepeh, you can go ahead and take off. You can take off. You can take it off. Except that's kedusha zaguf. Kedusha zaguf you can't take off. You need a mum. But let's say it's kedusha bedek habayis. If you magna something bedek habayis, a nazir, guys. A nazir, he becomes a nazir bepeh. He can be shoyel on his naziris, right? Had I known, it would be so hard. Had I known, had I known this, he could take it off. Memela says Rebbe Eliezer, since I can take off the shem chala from this, I have a shaykhus to it. If I have a shaykhus to it, then I can possibly be over by your matzah. Says Rebbe Yeshua, no, we don't say hoyel. Since we don't say hoyel, you have no shaykhus to this. It's the koyens and only the koyens. It's not yours. Therefore, go ahead. Separate it, let it become chametz, no sweat whatsoever. Good? Yes, Yehuda.
You're allowed to be.
You only get this. This is it.
I'm sorry. You're allowed to be shoyel on Yontif?
What?
You're allowed to be shoyel on Yontif?
I guess so.
You can't be.
I guess so. I get. It could be. It doesn't have to be Yontif. Hoyel. We'll say hoyel. Since let's just say hoyel. We'll say hoyel. That's
but there's no need to say hoyel before Yontif, because before Yontif you can give it to the kohen.
Let any time chala, in any chala situation, there's a din of hoyel. In any chala situation, there's a din of hoyel. Okay, so now
Rabbi Sterling forgot the after 9 o'clock rule.
That's fine. It's good. Guys, listen. Now we go into the off the tangent about hoyel in different locations. Again, this is a Gemara, tangential Gemara. The next Gemara is Gemara in Beitza. You all know this Gemara. It's the Erev Tavshilin Gemara. Okay, we know you could bake from Yontif to Yontif. You can't bake from Yontif to Chayil. Just like you can't bake from Yontif to Chayil, you can't bake from Yontif to Shabbos. Really, you should be able to bake from Yontif to Shabbos, because Shabbos is, as we're going to see, is not nish erga v'yontif. But since if we let you bake from Yontif to Shabbos, you can't bake from Yontif to Chayil. Therefore, to make a heka, we make an erev tafshilin that allows you to bake from Yontif to Shabbos. A heka. Now, says the Gemara, Itmar ha'oifa meyontif l'chayil. Someone bakes meyontif l'chayil. On Yontif, he goes ahead and he bakes l'chayil. He was over in Nissa. You're not like. He cooked for non-Shabbos. It's like cooking on Shabbos. Cooking on Shabbos is an Issakaris or Skila. Cooking on Yom Tov is a Lav and Malchus. Good. So Rav Chisda Amalaika says Rav Chisda gets Malchus. Rabbi Amma ain't Alaika. Rabbi says he doesn't get Malchus. Rav Chisda Amalaika, Lo Yamrin in Hoyel Mikli Le Archim Chazile. We don't say since. If Archim show up, he could cook. So who adim when the Archim are not there, he could cook. That's a Hoyel, guys. That's a Hoyel. This is very important. Get this Hoyel down. Since if Archim show up, he would be able to cook. Even if the Archim don't show up, we say Hoyel. Says of Chisda, I do not hold of that Hoyel, and therefore what? Malchus. We don't say Hoyel. Rabbi Amar, ain't a Laika. Rabbi says you don't get Malchus. Why? Because ain't a Laika, I mean in Hoyel. We do say Hoyel since Archim would show up. Since Archim would show up, we say Hoyel. Amalei Rabbi Rav Chisda, Lididach the Armit Loy Armin and Hoyel. According to you, that we don't say Hoyel. Heich oifim miyantiv l'Shabbos. How in the world can you be cooked from Yantiv to Shabbos? Bishleim, if you hold up Hoyel, since Archim show up, I could say Hoyel, Archim might show up, I can cook from Yantiv to Shabbos. El, according to you that you don't say Hoyel, how in the world can you cook from Yantiv to Shabbos? So Amalei, Mishum Erev Tavshilin, because of the Rabbanan decree of making an Erev Tavshilin. Hesh, by any chance, you know what an Erev Tavshilin is? It's an old joke, guys. It's okay, anyway.
I'll figure it out.
Yeah, ask your son that you took to the share.
About how many years ago was that? Wow.
About 25, 26. Halavai, I should remember the Gemara as much as I remember the jokes that we make fun of people. But we had Chazara by a Purim spiel. Somebody showed up with a gold bun and a matzah and an egg. Because of Erev Tavshilin. So that's why you can cook from Shabbos to Yom Tov. Fred the Gemara, a great question. Guys, if you don't hold its Hoyel, then it's an Issa Deraisa to cook from Shabbos to Yom Tov. Where's your heta? Bishleim, you hold a Hoyel, it's like cooking for Yom Tov. But if you don't hold a Hoyel, so how can Erev Tavshilin mechanically allow you to cook from Shabbos to Yom Tov? So Amalei, so Rav Chisda answered the following. This is a Yesod, guys. Midaraisa tzarchei Shabbos nasim b'Yom Tov. Fellas, can I cook from Yom Tov to Yom Tov? Of course you could. Shabbos is not worse, so you really could cook. And the whole reason that we don't is the Rabbanan de Gezerah Shabbos at the Chayil. For Rabbanan who the Gozri be Gezerah Shemiyovim Ofim Yom Tov after Chayil. If we let you cook from Yom Tov to Shabbos, you may cook to Yom Tov to Chayil with us in the Raisa. But Kivon the Tzrucha Rabbanan Erev Tavshilin. However, since the Chachamim require an Erev Tavshilin, Islay Hakera, you have Hakera. So it says Rav Chisda, it's true I don't hold of Hoyel, and really the reason I can cook from Shabbos from Yom Tov to Shabbos is because it's all the Rabbanon, and the hecker to go ahead and make sure that it stays intact is Erev Tavshilin. Esevei, Behema HaMesukenes. You got a behemoth that's holding by dying, it's Yom Tov. And you're full. You're allowed to shech an animal Yom Tov? Absolutely. Right? Shech an animal, no problem. This animal's dying. If it drops dead, you just took a big monetary loss. If you shecht it, you can butcher it and sell the meat. So now, lo yishchait, el kadei sheyachol lechol mena kazayis tzli mivoyoy. You can only shecht it if you have enough time to go ahead and eat a kazayis of tzli while it's still daytime. They say tzli is geshmak, guys. In order to eat meat, you have to get rid of the blood. There's two ways of getting rid of blood. Malicha, which takes time, and sli, you just put it on the fire and the blood drips out and gets burnt up. So it says you don't need the longer share of soaking it in washing it and putting it in salt, but sli, if you have time to go ahead and eat sli, that would be fine. Yachal lechel. Now it says yachal lechel afagav leiboy lemechel. You're able to eat it even though you don't actually eat it. This sounds like a hoyel, guys, right? Bishleim alididi dama hoyel says Rabba. Bishleim according to me says hoyel the boy lemechel matzi achol kshmachi yishkoi. since I could roast it, even if I don't roast it. According to you, Rav Chisda doesn't hold the oil. The Amit layer min oil. Why are you allowed to chef this? Where's your heta? I got a heta. I want to take a monetary loss. I don't want the animal dying, and we won't be able to do anything. Because hefsid mammon, are you going to go ahead and permit an issa deraisa? We're going to hefsid mammon. We're going to let you shecht when you don't need a shecht. Some you can't shecht an animal if you're not going to eat it. Bishlam, if you hold a hoil, you could shecht. But if you, Rav Chisda, don't hold a hoil, how can you shecht? So I'm lay in. Hefsid b'moinoi gomer beliboy lechol kezayis. Hefsid b'moinoi, when it comes to geld, it's an andere Welt. When it comes to his own money, he's going to get hungry quick. He's going to be able to eat a kazayas. It's not to have shaykh hefsher possible shlita. So this concept of hoil again appears throughout the Torah. This is a very famous hoil, the one that allows you to go ahead and shecht. If you shecht on yontif for hoil that you don't chayiv. Why? Because since if orchim would show up, you could check for them. Taisus brings a very interesting kasha. There's a nice Taisus here on the bottom. Bottom Taisus, bottom line. Iyarbin and Hoyol im Kain, but Talta Kol Melecha Shabbos. If you hold like Rabba, who holds the Hoyol, right? Hoyol v'royel l'choyla sheyesh b'sakana. Guys, are you allowed to be Mechal Shabbos for a Choyla that has sakana? Yeah, Pekuach Nefesh, right? So why don't we have any malacha you do? Why don't we say hoyel? Hoyel, since I could do this malacha for a choyel sheyesh b'sakana, so I could do it now if you hold a hoyel. V'yesh leimar kiva delei shchichi klal lo yamin hoyel. Since it's not shayach klal, we don't say hoyel. It's very meduyik. In other words, we say hol by something that's not so shchiach. We won't say hoyel by something that's not shtiach klal. So a choyla sheyesh b'sakana is something that is what is very not shayach klal, and therefore we won't say hoyel. So I heard Shuli Bronstein brought in a Chasam Sofer, beautiful kasha from Chasam Sofer. The malachim show up. The malachim show up on
Pesach.
On Pesach, right? And what does he say? He says, Ke'ez chayel Sarah ben. A year from now, Sarah is going to have a child. What does Avram do? Avram is what? Ke'ez chayel. Avram is cooking for them. He was cooking. He was cooking for them, right? And he was cooking. And why was it a choyel over there? It was Erev Pesach. It was Erev Pesach, right? It was Erev Pesach. No, I'm mixing it up. I didn't get. The problem he said over there was you don't say hoyel by goyim. So how was he allowed to cook? He thought they were Arabs. So how was he allowed to cook? It's in Teres Moshe. The Chasam Sofer has a sefer Teres Moshe. It's the first one in Vayera. So he gives a beautiful teretz. He says Avram Avinu was the third day of his milah. Avram had a din of chayil sheish b'sakana. Therefore, he was able to go ahead and make the food. Hoyel for him, since Hoyel was able to cook for him, he was able to give to them. But for them, Zichalein, he wouldn't be able to do it.
Good, thank you.